to making tracks. This year at Kent East Sussex, the policy of recreating an authentic Victorian light railway atmosphere should attract a record number of visitors.
We'll be seeing more later on, but first we concentrate on main line operations and journey to the southern hemisphere, where in 1992 the last rites of working steam were being carried out over a world-famous route.
For the steam enthusiast, no rail tour of South Africa would be complete without spending some time on the Kimberley line.
Then work back through, okay?
These are some of the sights that have made this line world famous. Fine arrays of semaphore signals and steam-hauled express freight workings such as this one, in the charge of a Class 25 condenser. After many years of living on borrowed time, steam operations finally came to an end in 1992. A reprieve seems unlikely, and so it looks as if scenes such as this will sadly be no more. Also seen at the time of this visit was a special working hauled by Preserved Class 15 CA, number 2828. The 25 condenser again, with the unmistakable whine of its fan system, one of which is in the smoke box to create the drafting normally provided by the exhaust steam, the others being in the tender in order to cool the condensed water. Later in the day, the famous Trans-Oranje Express departed from Belmont behind Class 25 NC, number 3411. Another 25 NC, number 3441, took over the special working for the final leg to Kimberley. steam specials should continue to run for some time. However, nothing can compare to the atmosphere created by the intensive express freight and passenger services of days gone by, which for so many years made the line a mecca for the hundreds of enthusiasts who visited the country.
If you want to experience an authentic Victorian light railway atmosphere, what better place to come to than the Kent and East Sussex Light Railway? They're running more services this year than ever, using their vintage locomotives and rolling stock.
It's a line which is faithfully attempting to recreate the flavour and atmosphere of its past, while at the same time catering for quantities of passengers unheard of in its days as a light railway. Commercial Director Mark Toynbee sets the scene.
We've got a very important history on this railway. We are unique amongst all the standard gauge preserved railways. We were the first line to be actually built as a light railway, which was an Act of Parliament of 1896 to allow railways to be built cheaply in rural areas. This was the very first line to be built under that Act, and I think therefore it is very worthy of preservation, and that is why we are granted charitable status, because of our historic importance.
Are you aiming for a particular type of rolling stock?
We're aiming to be different. I think that's what's important about survival. This railway was renowned for its infrequent service of small, rather archaic trains. Now, we can't run an infrequent service, otherwise we wouldn't make any money. But nonetheless, we're hoping to recreate that charm that personified this railway. Little trains, little and often.
And how far does your railway journey go at the moment here?
We've got a 7-mile operation now from Tenterden through to Northiam, been extended over the years. We've got many challenges ahead. We've got another 3 miles of line that we own through to Bodiam to rebuild, but in a totally derelict state. And then beyond there, the greatest challenge is to get back to the main line at Robertsbridge, where we've literally got to build a railway from nothing. The farmers have taken advantage of the railway being shut and ploughed it straight back into agriculture. There is no railway. We're starting from scratch.
Are you going to be able to do it yourselves, or will you have to have experts?
We are experts, so much of the work, of course, we're going to do ourselves. It's not whether or not we're capable of doing it, it's whether we've actually got the time to do it, bearing in mind that we're volunteers and doing it as a hobby. So there will be contractors called in to speed the work up. Otherwise, it would take literally a month of Sundays.
When are you hoping to have this extra line completed?
We could do it tomorrow if we had the money. We're talking certainly £2 million plus, but our aim is to have the line open throughout the line's centenary in the year 2000.
You're talking about money. Do you do special functions here to try and boost the money?
Continuously. It costs us £700,000 a year just to run the railway without even extending it or improving it. And the challenge of raising that money becomes ever more demanding every year. We run dinner trains, evening dinner trains, Sunday lunch trains. We hire out the facilities for corporate entertaining and filming. Any option to make money, it sounds awful, but money is about survival. And the ideals of Colonel Stevens, which was running railways on a shoestring, are a fine ideal, but to pay for those bills, we've got to earn at least £700,000 a year to survive.
This was one of the lines that Colonel Stevens began, didn't he?
This was one of the Colonel Stevens' empire. He ran about 16 minor railways, such as this one, from an office in Tunbridge, not very far from here. He was the only Victorian entrepreneur who really grasped the opportunities of the Light Railways Act and built some 16 light railways. This was his first and his most famous.
Colonel Homan F. Stevens would certainly have a big surprise if you were to see his railway today. A far cry from the sleepy backwater branch line image which typified so many of his lines. The railway's success owes much to the dedicated workforce, many of whom have been coming here long before the railway opened. Few people realize the vast amount of work necessary, even before the first passenger sets foot on a train.
Well, we had all the maintenance to do on the old rolling stock and trying to refurbish the old coaches and the locos, trying to keep the weeds down in the track, because after British Rail had closed it down, the grass grew immediately. So we had a lot of work to do there, and also the station buildings were in a very poor state of repair. So it was everything to do, really, before we could actually open to the public.
And Kathy, what is your involvement?
Well, I've been a guard since we opened in 1974, and I've also trained as a signalman, and now I'm training as a diesel driver and a crane slinger, and I roster all the loco crews.
And it's definitely something a woman can do, isn't it?
Definitely, no doubt about it, living proof.
Are there many women working on the Chesterton Railway?
There are only 3 of us who actually work on the operating side, but there are a lot of women behind the scenes and in the buffet in the shop and that sort of thing, doing on-train catering, and it's just as vital.
And how much time do you give to this?
I come down virtually every weekend and spend holidays here and that sort of thing, but then I'm local, so it's no problem for me.
What do you do normally?
I work in a bank. It's quite a different thing.
So it gives you some fresh air. Do
Indeed.
you ultimately want to become a driver? Would you like to drive the steam trains?
I don't want to be a steam engine driver, but I do want to be a diesel driver, yeah.
But you can't do that on Chesterton Railway, can you?
I can drive the diesels here, yes. I'm learning and hoping to pass out perhaps this year or next.
The Kent and East Sussex is typical of so many lines in this country. Positive and forward thinking, and with necessary expertise to expand and improve the railway. The only constraint being the enormous amount of money required to achieve these aims. Here, the policy of attracting visitors by returning to its roots has resulted in a superb line, full of charm and character.
We turn our attention now to the Indian subcontinent and travel to Pakistan, where earlier this year working steam was still to be found in broad and meter gauge. Most Western values have to be abandoned when entering this fascinating country. However, the lack of comfort, hygiene and privacy are more than compensated for by the wealth and quality of steam action to be found even in 1993. Fine old British-built locos, introduced here when the country was part of the Empire of India, are still working years beyond their time along many routes. The biggest concentration of broad gauge steam is around Malakwal, which also has a large depot. Lying roughly between Lahore and Islamabad, Malakwal has many branch and secondary lines in its area, and these are worked by 2 types of steam loco, one of which is the 440 class SPS. Built by the Vulcan foundry in the early part of this century, they're the last working 440s in the world. These elegant locos would look well suited to the highlands of Scotland, a far cry from the dust-ridden plains of deepest Pakistan. Indeed, looking at these scenes, it's difficult to believe that this is a country which has the second highest mountain in the world. Equally Scottish in appearance is the other type of steam loco to be found here, the 060 class SGS. To prove that it's not all flat, one of the lines worked by these engines runs through some mountainous terrain. Another steam centre is at Samosata, where the main motive power here is provided in the form of the 280 class CWD. These are a more modern design and were supplied by the Canadian War Department. One of the CWDs was given the full treatment by the staff at Samosata in order to work an enthusiast special in February 1993. On now to the meter gauge, of which there's only a small system centred around the Mirpur Khas in southern Pakistan. There's plenty of atmosphere at the shed there as the locos are made ready for the day. The classes to be found here are the 282 class YD or YE and the handsome 460 classes SP and MS. These engines struggle on bravely despite their run-down and neglected condition. One wonders how long diesels would keep running if subjected to the same treatment. Pakistan should continue to see steam operations for some time to come. And if the proposed reopening of the Khyber Pass to steam traffic takes place, then this would be a major incentive for enthusiasts from all over the world. So if you want to see steam at its best, working in fascinating and colourful surroundings, then book on one of the many rail tours being offered to Pakistan. It's an experience you certainly won't forget.
Would I do such a thing?
Well, that's it for this series of Making Tracks. We hope to be back soon, bringing you the best of British and worldwide steam, not to forget other forms of traction.
We hope you've enjoyed the programmes, and we look forward to the pleasure of your company in the future once again. So until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.